The morning they escorted Owen Mercer out of the building, every employee pretended to stare at their computer screens, afraid that meeting his eyes would make them part of the humiliation. His cardboard box held nothing more than a faded family photograph, a cracked coffee mug with the words "World's Best Dad," and a notebook filled with years of handwritten ideas that had quietly shaped one of the country's most respected engineering firms. The executives congratulated themselves for making room for a younger team of celebrated experts with impressive resumes and expensive degrees, believing they had finally replaced the old single father who had become outdated. What they never realized was that every one of those experts had once sat in front of Owen as nervous trainees, learning everything they knew from the very man they had just dismissed. If you believe kindness, second chances, and hard work still matter in today's world, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the Hardworking Dad channel. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. Owen had never imagined that 23 years of loyalty could disappear before lunchtime. He walked through the parking lot under the bright afternoon sun with steady steps, refusing to let anyone see the tears gathering in his tired eyes. At 46, life had already demanded more from him than most people would ever understand. 7 years earlier, he had buried his wife after a sudden illness, and from that day forward he became both father and mother to his 12-year-old daughter, Nora. Every early morning began with making breakfast, packing school lunches, braiding hair despite never having learned properly, and rushing across town before arriving at work ahead of everyone else. Every late evening ended with homework, laundry, bedtime stories, and quiet moments wondering whether he was doing enough. There had never been room for complaints because every ounce of strength belonged to the little girl waiting for him at home. Inside the company, Owen had earned a reputation unlike anyone else. He wasn't the loudest manager or the one chasing promotions. Instead, he became the person everyone visited when projects collapsed, machines failed, or impossible deadlines threatened entire contracts. New employees arrived nervous and uncertain, but after weeks working beside Owen, they left confident and capable. He believed knowledge became valuable only when it was shared. While others protected their experience like treasure, Owen gave it away freely, patiently explaining every mistake until his students understood not only how something worked but why it mattered. Ironically, the executives rarely noticed those quiet moments. They admired polished presentations and impressive titles, not the patient mentor staying late to help another employee succeed. When a consulting company suggested replacing experienced veterans with younger, industry experts, who promised revolutionary efficiency, the board eagerly accepted. Charts, statistics, and fashionable business language convinced them they were modernizing the company. Owen's years of service became just another number on a cost-cutting spreadsheet. Returning home that afternoon, Owen forced a smile before opening the front door. Nora immediately sensed something had changed. Children often recognize sadness long before adults admit it exists. She hugged her father tightly, noticing he had arrived home much earlier than usual. Instead of telling her about losing his job, he simply spent the afternoon helping with homework, cooking her favorite pasta, and laughing a little louder than necessary. Later that evening, after she had fallen asleep, he sat alone at the kitchen table staring at unpaid bills. Fear settled heavily on his shoulders, yet giving up never crossed his mind. He had survived heartbreak before. He would survive this too. The following weeks became some of the hardest days of Owen's life. He searched endlessly for work while accepting temporary repair jobs in neighborhood workshops. During weekends he fixed broken appliances for elderly neighbors who could barely afford professional services. Many tried paying extra after seeing his dedication, but Owen accepted only what was fair. His reputation quietly spread through the community, not because he advertised, but because grateful families told others about the kind single father who never left until everything worked perfectly. Meanwhile, back at the engineering firm, confidence quickly turned into confusion. The celebrated experts impressed everyone during meetings, but reality proved much harsher than polished resumes. Complex projects stalled. Long-time clients complained about delays. Teams struggled to communicate because the new leadership focused more on appearing knowledgeable than actually solving problems. Small mistakes multiplied into expensive disasters. Employees who had once relied on Owen's calm guidance suddenly found themselves facing problems nobody seemed able to fix. What nobody wanted to admit was that the company's greatest strength had never been technology alone. It had been Owen's ability to bring people together, teaching experienced workers and beginners to trust one another. Without him, knowledge became scattered, teamwork disappeared, and confidence slowly collapsed. Several of the newly promoted experts began recognizing something painfully ironic. They remembered sitting in Owen's training sessions years earlier, writing detailed notes while he patiently corrected every misunderstanding. Every advanced technique they proudly listed on their resumes had originally come from him. At first they ignored those memories, believing they had surpassed their old mentor. Now, facing crisis after crisis, they realized they had only mastered the lessons Owen had already given them. They had never learned his humility, patience, or quiet leadership. One bright spring morning the company faced its biggest disaster. A multi-million-dollar project for a children's hospital encountered a catastrophic systems failure only weeks before completion. Months of work seemed ready to collapse overnight. Clients threatened legal action. Investors demanded explanations. Engineers worked around the clock without success. Every attempted solution created another unexpected problem. As panic spread through every department, an older maintenance supervisor quietly spoke the truth everyone had been avoiding. He reminded the executives that years earlier Owen had designed the original training system that prevented exactly these kinds of failures. Silence filled the conference room. Pride suddenly became an expensive luxury. Finding Owen proved surprisingly difficult because he had never updated his professional profiles. Eventually one former trainee located him through a local community center where he spent free afternoons teaching teenagers practical engineering skills without charging a single cent. While corporations argued over profits, Owen had continued sharing knowledge simply because he believed young people deserved opportunities. When company representatives arrived, they expected bitterness, anger, or satisfaction. Instead, they found Owen patiently helping students build simple machines from recycled materials. His clothes carried traces of grease, his hands remained rough from honest work, yet his eyes still reflected the same quiet determination they remembered years ago. They explained the crisis, admitted the company needed help, and reluctantly acknowledged they had underestimated his value. Owen listened carefully before looking toward the teenagers excitedly testing their projects under the warm afternoon sun. He thought about the painful months since losing his career, the sleepless nights worrying about Nora's future, and the humiliation of being treated as disposable after decades of sacrifice. Every reason to refuse stood clearly before him. Yet Owen also knew that failure would hurt hundreds of ordinary employees who had done nothing wrong. Families depended on those jobs. Patients depended on the hospital opening on time. Sometimes forgiveness wasn't about forgetting pain. Sometimes it meant choosing compassion despite it. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the company windows as Owen entered the building where he had once believed his career had ended forever. Employees stopped working almost instantly. One by one, people stood to welcome him back. Some smiled through tears. Others quietly apologized with lowered heads. Even those who barely knew him could feel something extraordinary happening. Owen didn't waste time seeking recognition. He gathered every engineer into one room, carefully studied the failing project, and began organizing teams according to each person's strengths instead of their job titles. He encouraged experienced workers to mentor younger staff. He listened before speaking. He praised small victories that restored confidence. Slowly the atmosphere transformed from fear into determination. Over the following days, impossible problems became manageable. Confusing systems suddenly made sense. Exhausted employees found renewed energy simply because someone finally believed in them again. Owen solved technical challenges, but more importantly, he reminded everyone that great companies are built by people who trust one another. The executives watched in disbelief as productivity returned faster than any consultant had predicted. More surprising was the reaction from the so-called experts. Rather than defending their pride, many openly admitted they were still learning from the man they once considered outdated. They recognized that experience could never be replaced by fashionable trends alone. When the Children's Hospital project was finally completed successfully, the celebration belonged to every employee. Families applauded as the building officially opened under bright blue skies, knowing countless children would soon receive life-changing care there. Owen quietly stepped away from the cameras, satisfied that the work itself mattered more than personal attention. A week later, the board held another meeting. This time, instead of discussing replacement strategies, they unanimously offered Owen an executive leadership position with a salary far exceeding anything he had earned before. They also promised public recognition for his decades of service. Owen thanked them sincerely but surprised everyone once again. Rather than accepting the prestigious title, he proposed something entirely different. He asked the company to create a permanent mentorship academy where experienced employees could train young professionals before retirement, ensuring valuable knowledge would never again disappear because of short-sighted decisions. He requested scholarships for single parents pursuing technical careers and internships for students from struggling families. If the company truly wanted to honor him, he said, then it should invest in people rather than replacing them. The proposal received unanimous approval. Months later, the academy became one of the company's greatest achievements. Employee satisfaction reached record levels. Young graduates flourished under experienced mentors. Veteran workers felt respected instead of forgotten. Businesses across the country visited to learn from the program Owen had inspired. At home, life slowly became brighter as well. Nora watched her father smile more often than he had in years. She proudly told classmates that her dad helped people become their best instead of trying to be the most important person himself. One sunny afternoon she found the old cracked coffee mug still sitting on the kitchen shelf. Although worn and faded, it remained his favorite because it reminded him what success truly meant. Not awards. Not titles. Not applause. Success meant returning home every evening knowing he had remained a good father and a good man. Years after the painful dismissal that nearly broke him, people rarely remembered the executives who had replaced Owen. They remembered the humble single dad whose greatest achievement was never the projects he completed but the people he lifted. His legacy lived inside every engineer he had trained, every student he had encouraged, every parent he had inspired, and every child who walked safely through the hospital his wisdom had helped complete. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with your friends and family, leave a heartfelt comment, and subscribe to Hardworking Dad so more people can experience stories that remind us of the power of kindness, forgiveness, and perseverance. Special request: comment, a true mentor can never be replaced if you believe that real greatness comes from lifting others instead of standing above them. Sometimes the world mistakes quiet people for ordinary people. It celebrates louder voices while overlooking gentle hands that quietly build futures for everyone around them. But time has a remarkable way of revealing the truth. Skills can be copied, titles can be replaced, and positions can change overnight, but character cannot be manufactured. In the end, the single father everyone thought was outdated proved that the strongest leaders are not those who demand respect, they are the ones who earn it every single day through sacrifice, humility, and an unwavering commitment to helping others rise.